That question of what about the car industry is archaic, like the car industry is archaic. When I first got into that environment, it was anxiety and imposter syndrome. The anxiety is really a form of fear. I literally just started. That was like my mentality. I didn't understand anything about like proper business frameworks, or I'm not afraid of life. I'm not really afraid of growth. I would rather fail fast. If you're not going to be passionate about what you're doing, then you're not going to be successful. I'm not selling a dream. Like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it with or without you. You're the gasoline to my fire.
Exactly.
And then you get to join in this blaze.
Welcome to the Generation Hustle Podcast, a show that explores the world of business, entrepreneurship, and culture, all centered around the millennial. I'm your co-host Ryerson, alongside my good friend Amin, and we're back this week with another episode with an incredible entrepreneur. Episode 55 is with Tiago Teixeira, CEO and co-founder of XIX 3D. After graduating with a Bachelor of Psychology, Tiago pursued his passion for cars instead, launching into the automotive space first with wrapping cars, to now innovating the way the entire business works. XIX 3D runs a 3D car configurator that helps visualize the artistic work through hyper-realistic renderings and custom graphics within seconds. We talked to Tiago about his drive and how he found his calling in the car industry. He explains his journey from masterminding the viral sensation Purrari, a baby blue Ferrari wrapped for none other than deadmau5, to now leading a tech company taking the industry by storm. Tiago also explains the impact of mentoring through the Ryerson DMZ to expressing self-confidence to achieve your goals. This was an incredibly motivational conversation that we hope you can learn from and enjoy.
You know what? Let's just jump right into this.
Cool. I'm good.
Talk about who Tiago is and all about the business you're building and where you come from. So, one of the things that always fascinates me has been how individuals, go to school, go take a degree, and somewhat end up in something so totally different, right? So in your instance, obviously you've done your psychology degree, but you happen to work with and work on cars. And so what was that what's the driver behind, not being a psychologist or whatever kind of career that kind of relates to that? And was it just kind of related to your passion for cars and just being around those individuals?
Yeah, sure. I mean, for me, the passion for cars has always been there.
Yeah.
The schooling was more of a byproduct of me just wanting to go to school, make my parents happy, proud.
Yeah.
I'm the last child, and my other siblings, they didn't go to university. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to do it. My parents immigrated from Portugal, and cool. I'm going to go to university. And it was just more honestly, not for any real reason. But the entrepreneur bug already bit me when I was in high school.
Right.
I started a t-shirt company. I was selling t-shirts in university.
Nice.
I would, I'd throw parties, and I'd but they were investments, because I'd buy kegs and I'd charge money at the door, and I'd profit like anywhere from 20 to 100% on the night. So it was just kind of like always a part of me. And then, but right away, as soon as I graduated, I started my business.
Right. No, that's awesome. And so walk us through what you're working on right now. And let's talk about your first business. And correct me if I'm wrong if I say this, Sekanskin?
Second skin. Yeah. So to play on words, like the second skin.
Okay. And so, you started that right out of school, right? And it's interesting to see, because like most individuals who graduate, we're like, hey, I'm going to get a job and then learn about, some processes and stuff like that before I enter into entrepreneurship. But you're like completely opposite and just went right into it. So what made you kind of make that decision, and how did you kind of assess that was a good decision for you?
You know what? It's just that for me, like, I've never been afraid of anything. I'm not afraid of life. I'm not really afraid of growth. I don't manage risk the same way that like I see, comparatively other people. And, not that it's not calculated, but that it's, I would rather fail fast.
Right.
And that kind of just trajects me. And it's the kind of philosophy that I follow, where, if what do I have to lose, really?
Yeah.
And that was my biggest driving force when I started, was just, I just had nothing to lose. And it wasn't about what I knew or what I didn't know, is that I like to be under pressure.
Yeah.
And for me, like, being under pressure is the only way I can grow. And in many cases, the only way that I can actually show my true talent and show my true self. Honestly, like if I'm winning in a video game or winning in a game of basketball or tennis, I actually, like, my skill, my talent, like, significantly decreases.
Right.
Because I'm not under pressure. If I'm winning, it's not fun.
Right.
I like that challenge.
Hmm.
I like to be behind. I like to be the underdog. It's how I grow. It's how I learn.
Right. And so where did you kind of, I guess from that, I guess is your mentality, but where did you learn to kind of build out the car side of things in terms of a business model and frame it in a way? Because I feel you started Second Skin around what, 8, 9 years ago now?
Yeah, exactly. 8, 9 years ago.
Yeah. And so I think during that time, like cars and Instagram were all becoming popular. So maybe you took advantage of that whole kind of side of things. But like, walk us through kind of how you started that business and how you grew it, especially as someone as young as, they're 23, 22, right out of school.
Yeah, no, and I literally just started. That was like my mentality. I didn't understand anything about like proper business frameworks or setting yourself up, like even for like taxation. It was just listen, I'm going to go for it, and
Yeah.
I just started the business. Had a guy that was phenomenal at doing it. He was kind of like my anchor as we
Right.
grew, and that's really kind of I leaned on him, he leaned on me, and together we just kind of like started growing, and yeah, I mean I've always been a team player. Like I'm
Hmm.
not much of a I'm more of an orchestra. I'm not a soloist.
Right. No, I like that kind of thought process because the individuals that say like they've done it themselves, it's usually not the truth. That's the team that's with you that's really kind of built it and helped you out. And like similar in a sense, like I work at a startup, and it's not one individual kind of running the show. It's without the product guy, without like the marketing person, the salespeople, you can't really build the entire product. So I like that mentality of yours. And then what is it like during the early days of starting the business and getting a client and figuring out that because we have a lot of individuals that come on our show ask us or sorry individual listeners that ask us, hey, like how do I find my first client when I'm starting a business? And you're in the service-based industry, so at that time, so what was your kind of business model? Was it referrals or was it reaching out through DMs or something like that?
Honestly, it was a strictly word of mouth, organic style of marketing, and we leveraged Instagram like
Hmm.
specifically and heavily.
Yeah.
It was our main kind of like medium for accessing the public. But when we're talking about my experiences in the early days, I tend to describe this as, the king deals. Those are
Mm.
the days of the king deals, and I mean that actually not in any sense of a king or a deal. A deal, but I would. There was a Burger King that was
Yep.
literally at the corner, and that was my breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It
Hmm.
was convenient, literally walking distance, and price efficient,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, but literally, it was whatever the deal of the day was, the king deal, and they don't
Yeah.
even have it
Yeah.
anymore. I would get the king deal, and sometimes I would upgrade to a poutine, but it's just that's what I could afford for me, my team. I would cover for my team as well, and
Right.
that was us growing. And then the marketing kind of came with the grind, right?
Right.
So then it
Right.
was just every single day, every night. I'd get in as early as I can, and I mean, like I wasn't like a 8 a.m. guy. I was a
Right. Right.
more of
Right.
a working till 4 a.m. kind of guy. So it was getting out, getting in as early as I possibly could, and
Mm.
continue the grind.
No, that's
So
awesome. That's
yeah,
awesome, man. And one question that I really want to ask you is, what was it like completing a rap for Dead Mouse? And how's the notoriety around seeing that little crypto kitty going around Toronto and whatnot?
that my story is not a story without Dead Mouse.
Yeah.
Joel is he's just he's probably one of the most generous people in my life.
Mm.
I mean, I'm just talking personal experiences, right?
Yeah.
Like he did a lot. He did a lot for me with regards to even just believing in me, giving me that opportunity. But more than anything, it helped myself grow with confidence, right?
Right.
Because I knew that, listen, I can rise to the occasion. I can accomplish
Right.
something for somebody who's very difficult to work for and very difficult to please. He
Yeah.
made it easy for me, but at the same time, it's because I operated at the level of efficiency and quality that he was after. And quickly it became an exchange of mutual respect and well, I mean, I maybe not mutual because I heavily respected him.
Right.
But honestly, today, like I call him my friend, and I see him every so often. Still, we keep in touch, and he still helps me to this day, like with a lot of really powerful contacts,
Yeah.
connections. He's a he's a big part of my life, that's for sure. Because
And
without, yeah,
yeah, how'd you meet him initially?
Well, the first thing I did when I started my business was I started it with a bang, right? So it's like,
Okay.
how do, to your question earlier, is like, how do you acquire clients? Like,
Right.
you got to do something that's just out there. You got to be remarkable, right? So the first car I ever did was a glow in the dark car. It was the first in the world, first of its kind. And it's what got the attention of the car community, which then in turn got the attention of Deadmau5, right? Was I made a splash. I didn't
Yeah.
just do a cool color. Like I did the color that was impossible.
Right.
When I bought the film, they said, this is for signs. This was like a product developed with NASA. And like, it was like, it's not for cars. And I'm like, cool, that's the product I want to wrap my car with.
Right.
So, and then I successfully did it. And it was the first of its kind. And
Sweet.
it went viral, and it was cool. And that's how we put our foot on the, in the industry.
No, that's awesome. And then, what would you say has been your like funnest wrap job outside of Deadmau5, and in terms of like the most wild experience you've had?
It's got to be the Prismacon. That one's my personal art project.
Okay.
That's where like I really, really push the limits of what's possible as a wrap.
Yeah.
And to this day, I believe it's the most expensive wrap ever sold in the world. I'm yet to, with an actual wrap, I think there's guys that have done like diamonds and stuff.
Okay.
That's because the value of the diamond, obviously.
Yeah.
But with regards to a wrap that was ever done, like I think it was just, honestly, I took a vinyl it was an architectural material, and I kind of manipulated it in a way where I could, apply it to a vehicle. I strategically changed the application technique, and, it came up with this really crazy, like it was a chrome that changed color, like it was an iridescent. So it was like a mirror finish. It changed color, and then I added a reflection, kind of like like an ambulance has like the reflectors on it.
Right.
So like if you shined light on it, it would actually reflect back to you, like blind you.
Oh, sweet.
So it was a really, really cool project, and we called it the Prismacon, and it's actually where I first went out and I ventured into the tech world. Was to show it off. So it was that's my personal favorite project.
Did you have a mentor to learn all these things? Because it sounds like, like you're obviously interested in cars, but like, where did you learn the aptitude to kind of learn about all these things and trying to put it together when it comes to a wrap? Like, that's really interesting.
I honestly, like, I never had a mentor for business.
Yeah.
I had a, he was kind of like a partner in a sense in my early stages. And he was just one of the best vinyl artists I'd ever met.
Yeah.
So he was the guy I looked to when it came to like applications, but eventually it just became, I wanted to push the limits of what's possible. And that, you're on your own when you're in that territory. Right. And I never experienced the true value of a true mentor until, I went to the DMZ.
Obviously very familiar with those guys, and they've obviously helped your buddy Phil as well, and many other startups in the community to kind of scale. And so that's a perfect segue into, talking about your digital startup. And is it XIX3D or?
You got it.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. And basically it's helping individuals build 3D car configurations and to add more personalization and customization. So did that idea kind of come out and spawn from your experiences out of, having your own wrap shop and knowing the struggles in terms of how to design things and whatnot?
I would say the origin of this is in a story that I tell all the time. And it's, if you want to change the color of your wall behind you, if you want to make that wall blue, right, you're going to hire a college painter. He's going to come to your house and he's going to bust out a swatch book, and he's going to show you, what color, what's your Pantone, what are you looking for? When I sell a Lamborghini, when I sold, when I was talking to Deadmau5 about the color of his Ferrari, I'm showing him a swatch book. Which color do you want? Right. And that was something that eventually over time, as I was growing and scaling and just increasing my Rolodex of clients and connections, it just got to a point where I'm like, this is not doing justice to the artistic nature of what it is that I'm actually bringing to the table. Like I'm about to go, work for like 50 hours, 100 hours on something to bring an art piece to life. And the only thing I can show this person is either a Google image or a swatch book. And it was in probably 2015 when I just couldn't get this thought out of my head. But in 2017, honestly, my partners, my current partners and the co-founders, we kind of got together, and it was like, we're going to do this thing. And that's when it was like, we are going to bring justice to this industry. Right. And it's like there's no technology. The industry is archaic. We need to build something that gives justice to the work that actually happens here, right?
Mm.
And that was really my driving force to begin this entire journey and growth. And it's been it's just spiraled into something unbelievable today. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you mentioned archaic, and there's a lot of industries that have failed to change yet. And, there's always new and disruptive technologies that come out, like such as yourself. So what about the car industry is archaic? And can you kind of explain specifically how your solution is kind of changing and paving the way of reimagining how, car wraps and stuff can look like, or even outside of just specifically car wraps?
That question of what about the car industry is archaic, like the car industry is archaic.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, like we're still using fossil fuels as a motive of transportation.
Yeah.
Like what, like, and I have an answer to this. Well, I have a theory on this. But the car industry has always been archaic.
Yeah.
It's always been the last, like when we think about like, it's no wonder Elon Musk is, one of the richest CEOs in the world. He brought, electric vehicles, obviously the PayPal and the SpaceX, et cetera. But, he's known really for Tesla, right? And it's like, but electric vehicles, you can almost say that technology has been around for how long?
Like over 100 years, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, well, when's the first time you drove an RC car, right?
Yeah.
It's as simple as that at the end of the day. And, the industry is archaic. The real question is why, right? And to me, like that becomes more of a psychological question, something that relates more to the culture, right? Like a car person, a car enthusiast has deep connections with the culture of cars. You'll see guys that they want the V8, really loud Mustang, doesn't really care about suspension and all like, the technological advances with transmissions. They just want that beautiful car sounding amazing and just the classic. Right. And again, and then there's the other part of it where it's like you and your car is an extension of you, right? And you can think about this like, road rage, for example, or like, like it's how people personalize their car and wrap them and make them their own. Right. But that psychological factor when you're driving, you're in your bubble, right? Somebody gets too close, you instantly get really upset, right? If somebody's, doing something silly, you have a very strong opinion about it, like in some cases or in others, most cases, right?
Yeah.
And it really comes down to like, what is it about that attachment of us with this vehicle that creates a very strong psychological attachment, right? There's something deeper there, right? And this is what I believe is like, there's a nostalgia with that, right? Like at the end of the day, the car represents your freedom, right? You're able to go, your car represents your personality, extension of your personality. And then even think about it from this perspective. A car can represent your success, right? Somebody hits a very strong financial success. What's the first thing that they go do? Or what's the first thing you'd expect them to do? Right? It's like you buy a Lambo, you buy a Ferrari, right? And then obviously the Rolexes, et cetera, come after. But the first thing is the car. What type of car you drive is people like to judge that based on what they think about you. And that to me is a very strong, like I feel like the concept of cars and automotive culture is almost underrated in a sense. And that's, again, coming back to technology, it's prime for innovation. You got to be delicate when you innovate in this space.
Yeah, I've never ever thought about how kind of it correlates to a lot of different things that you just mentioned, especially the psychological part. Like I obviously understand, like I remember as a young kid, I'll see, those cars ripping down the street that are really kind of those muscle cars and stuff. And you'd say, oh, wow, that's a great car. And then you see a Honda Civic pass by, like, okay, that's just a regular car, right? So it's just like, I totally get you. And I think like from an industry standpoint, there's several different industries where there's like that psychological aspect where there's just an attachment. Like for watches, they really haven't been innovated or anything. It's again, Rolex versus some other timepiece that you get. There's a whole psychological factor, like you just mentioned. So it's interesting to think about that. And then, so let's talk. You mentioned technical as well in terms of building out a platform. How does an individual such as yourself, who doesn't, I'm assuming you don't have like a coding background and stuff like that, go and find a co-founder to kind of help you build and scale the business and convince that individual the car industry is the right industry to, innovate?
I mean, the short answer to this is I think I got a little lucky. The long answer would be, I didn't even know this was a thing until, I started using Clubhouse recently. It's not so much of a new app anymore, but it's like sometimes really interesting topics, right? And I follow like, technology and, all of those like trending things that relate to what I'm interested in. And one of the things I started seeing a lot of rooms of like, how to become a CTO without any technology background,
Yeah, no
right?
code.
And no code, right? And for me, it was just always just our partnership, our co-founders built such a strong, we're just a powerhouse where we all execute our respective skill sets at our highest levels that we can, right? And my CTO is, his name is Amr. He's brilliant, right? And at the end of the day, he's always handled technology at a level where I've never had to.
Right.
It's also given me the ability to learn at an accelerated rate where now I understand. Now I'm very in tune with today's technology. I mean, I have to be as a CEO of a tech company, but I'm also very much like in the understanding of like the logic and how the technology is put together and the use cases and the utilities of each, right? And with what's coming in the future and why it matters.
Yeah.
Right. And all of that stuff has grown our vision as a company with, it's no longer about us providing a visualizer for the automotive space. It's about much more.
Yeah. And how has that, like, for example, I think one of the most important things as a leader, especially as a CEO, is understanding, when to not get involved in certain aspects. Like how I've experienced this where, a CEO will try to make technical decisions and stuff like that and not let his expert make the decisions. Like where did you kind of build that comfort and trust level at where, you said, hey, Amr, like do your thing. I know I can trust you. And like, I know you're going to do the right thing. Like, where does that come from? Where does that confidence come from?
Well, honestly, it came from him executing.
Yeah.
From, in our very first year of business, I was able to work this deal with a Fortune 500 company and they gave us a shot. And honestly, I trusted Amr to put together the whole execution strategy, putting together the milestones.
Yeah.
And, he had never done that before.
Right.
Like he had come fresh out of, computer science, engineering, whatever. He was fresh out of school when it came to real world application. He's never worked for another tech company. So for him to have put that together and executed to me was all the confidence I needed moving forward to trust this person.
Yeah.
And for me, it was all about at that point forward was I'm going to invest what I know my skill sets are to help this person grow in everything else other than their technical skill set, because that I didn't need to worry about.
And how have you leveraged and become like a better leader through a form of communication and also setting expectations? And I think like one of the biggest things that a lot of startups fail at is, especially at a leadership standpoint, I feel, is setting expectations for their team, but also helping them scale. So like what's the approach you've taken in terms of making that happen?
I hit my team with aggressive expectations, but I allow them to fail.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I definitely feel like I operate at a high level under a pressure cooker, but most people do, right? And that's just the reality. And in some cases where some people don't do well under pressure, if they have support, then that can offset that.
Yeah.
Right. And so what I apply with my aggressive, mandates and, these are the deadlines. This is what we're going to do. Like that crazy CEO vision sometimes I'll bring to the table.
Right.
I add a layer of support to that too, where it's like, listen, I understand that what I'm asking here and here and here is pretty much insane. And the deadlines I'm giving is crazy. However, I'm going to apply this level of resource here. I have a strategy here. I've thought about what your pain points will be.
Right.
And I don't just say, figure it out. Like I try to be like, listen, how can I help you? I can't code, but I can help logic. I'm very logical. I can help you like think through the code. A lot of times they'll use me and then they'll be like, okay, fine, I got it. I'll figure it out. And
right.
It's usually just being there is all that's needed. Right. And showing that level of support as a leader, you work for that person at the end of the day. Because if you don't, then you're not really much of a leader. Right. And that's the way I look at it, that, if I'm not working towards their success, then that doesn't make me a good leader. That makes me I'm expecting them to do something. And that's different than leading.
Yeah. And I think you have such a brilliant perspective on that, because a lot of individuals are not that type of leader. They just kind of say, hey, I need XYZ done. Go do it for me. And that's about it. Right. You're kind of building an inclusive culture and building that culture, which is very important, especially as a young company. And that brings me to my next kind of topic here is you mentioned that you're also a part of the DMZ network. And one of the things I found first time tech founders really get, take advantage of is interacting with other founders. Right. So how's that experience been, and how's the DMZ network kind of helped you scale the business and make the right decisions for XIX 3D?
But when I first got into that environment, it was anxiety and imposter syndrome.
Mm.
I looked around and I saw these brilliant founders,
Yeah.
like these mentors that were like, doing everything that I was dreaming of, now starting to realize what my potential could be.
Right.
But I felt like I was in a room of everyone else who was already fulfilling their potential. So it was actually like I had a lot of like anxiety that I'd never experienced in my life. And that's when I learned anxiety is really a form of fear. And I've never experienced fear or anxiety or anything like that until, honestly, it was like in my last 2 years. That's when I started to learn about what that feeling is. And then at first it scared me, but not so much scared me, but just put me in a position of like unknown, which is another level of fear. But then it got me to that, like, I became excited, right? Where I'm like, this is growth.
Yeah.
This is now where I can take everything that I've been doing and take it to the next level.
Yeah.
And I believe the DMZ, was a really good experience for me in that, because now I can learn from people. Being the dumbest person in the room is always the room I want to be in.
Right.
I don't want to be the smartest person in the room because, well, then I've got nothing to gain.
Right.
So, I got really into the experience. I think you asked a specific question there. What was the exact question? Let me just answer that.
Yeah,
quickly.
just like around how the experience with interacting with other founders had helped kind of scale your learning. And the very sense, like I'm very like attuned to kind of what you just said. Like if I'm not the dumbest in the room, I'm not really learning. So, obviously you've maybe this individual is like a 2X founder, a 3X founder, whatever it is. And so you found yourself in a new tech environment. And so what was that experience like? And, what have you learned from other founders as you kind of built out the company?
Yeah, sorry. So I guess more like specifically on that note, like, it was a totally new landscape for me coming from like more of a service industry. So like the ceiling being like so high and almost potentially limitless, I was really learning about how other founders were like focusing on scale, focusing on like accelerated growth, which is what I call it now. And how to do that. Right. Like, is that like, what does that even mean? And to me, that's what the journey was for me, was learning even what does it mean to scale? What does it really mean to grow at that level? Because all I had known is hire more people, do more jobs. And eventually, your shop, if a wrap shop, for example, it just gets, okay, now you need to get a bigger space. And that's a very slow scale, right? It's more gradual. But in tech, there's ways that you can go, parabolic, exponential overnight. And that's just with like, having the right positioning in a market, right? And having the right product at the right time and having the right team. And so a lot of that was just revolutionary for me.
Yeah. And so what are your thoughts on, raising capital versus kind of bootstrapping and building out the business? Because obviously your first business, you're probably accustomed to, bootstrapping, building it up and stuff like that. You're seeing profitability. Whereas with a lot of tech startups, you'll see is like high growth, obviously a loss in the first few years or whatever, and taking venture on to kind of scale and help fuel that growth. So like, what's that new perspective on kind of building business to you like now, once you've experienced the whole tech side of things?
Well, I've always had to build a business that's been bootstrapped because I never came from any financial stability. So I had to profit every year, and every year I didn't, it was Burger King. So in my tech company, since day one, we've been profitable.
Nice.
I think during COVID, we hit, we just pivoted and we leveraged some government subsidies, which kind of kept us afloat. But for the most part, like we've always been lean and running profitable. And to the point of like venture capital and like that whole experience, that only became a thing for me in the last 6 months. Where I've realized that, and I think it's just because my vision wasn't big enough originally. I set out to accomplish a goal and I was on a mission. And when I got close to that or accomplished it in certain extents, I realized that, okay, now what else can I do? And today my vision is, we're talking about the automotive industry. It's a $3.5 trillion industry. Like how big can your vision get? Right. And that's where I'm at today. And we have a very, very powerful goal and growth metric that we're after. And now it's like the realization of this is why you need venture capital. This is why you need to go and bootstrapping is great. And if you can do it and you can get kind of lucky and hit like that right little threshold where you just start scaling exponentially without any capital, you're good. But I don't want to wait for that possibility to happen. And that's what I love about the venture part.
Mm.
Giving up some equity is okay. The way that, and again, this is the way that I've factored it into what our vision and goals
Yep.
are. And bringing on venture capital today makes a lot of sense. And that's really, I've just been studying what that means. Like, what does it mean to pitch? What do they want to hear?
Yep.
And how good, fundamentally sound does your vision need to be?
Right.
How well of an executor do you need to be? And that's where I realized, I'm like, I'm not selling a dream. Like, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And that's what's given me a lot of momentum and velocity down this path. Because like, I'm confident that I know somebody's going to invest in me, because at the end of the day, I'm going to do it with or without you. Just you make things happen faster. You're the gasoline to my fire.
Exactly.
And then you get to join in this blaze.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I think with your previous business background, you already have a step up in a lot of individuals, just because you understand how to kind of build something out. And I think most individuals in the VC space, that's the number one thing they look at, and the team, right? So I think you guys are doing it right. And to be profitable this early on at a young stage, they'll probably be shocked to see that as well. So that's like probably a breath of fresh air for most of those individuals, because your business model actually does make sense. So that's awesome, man. I really like that. I wanted to pivot into one thing before we end up the podcast here. Is one thing a lot of individuals struggle today with, especially coming out of school, is, and something I've personally experienced, because when I was growing up, I was really interested in becoming a mechanic for cars and doing all that kind of stuff. But obviously,
cool.
Societal pressures moved me away from that kind of thing, saying the trades wasn't a good career or whatever. And so what would you say to, young individuals who are probably more hands-on, but, our system doesn't really encourage that? They say, hey, go to university, learn that theory-based stuff. What would you kind of give? What advice would you kind of give them?
I mean, like, the cliche thing I'd say is like, do what makes you happy. But I mean, to get a little bit deeper, I would honestly say that, like, if you're not going to be passionate about what you're doing, then you're not going to be successful.
Yeah.
And that's just the reality. And I think about this question a lot, because I feel like there's a lot of good information out there, but like, what can be applied practically to you as an individual, if you're listening to, to this, or, to if you have this question in your head.
Yeah.
And I really think that it's like, there comes a point in your life, especially in early on, like, where it's like, you have nothing to lose. And almost if anything else, just realize that.
Yeah.
And now, basing off of that benchmark, what do you want to do? Right. And now it's like, and who cares what that is? Because the sooner you fail, the sooner you learn.
Yeah.
And that's schooling in itself. Right. I mean, that's the point of education, is to learn. Right. And at the end of the day, if you don't want to go through the school route, then you can go the experience route. And the only way to do that is to accelerate that process by jumping with both feet.
Yeah. And then maybe the final question around that is, LinkedIn and all that other stuff. We have a lot of, influencers and all that kind of stuff impacting how we see things in terms of a business set, or how we see ourselves. Like, how have you kind of overcome imposter syndrome and kind of overlooked the fact that, I'm not Elon Musk or any of that. I don't need to be Elon Musk to be successful, that kind of stuff. Like, what's your philosophy around that, and how have you kind of dealt with that?
It came down to me defining my purpose.
Yeah.
Right. And like, as a CEO of this tech company, in my situation, I broke it down actually with the help of Philip, who I know you did a podcast with him. Well, that guy is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
And he's helped me tremendously. And having a mentor is key for this. A good mentor, not like an Instagram mentor.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly,
like a true mentor, that's someone that you can learn from, that's going to teach you what you need to know. And he gave me this one piece that kind of helped me grow. Like, I'd say I 10x'd my experience, knowledge, everything as a business owner. And I have these three tasks, responsibilities that I consider are my job. Right. Number one is sell the vision. Right. Number two is recruit the talent. And number three is raise money.
Yeah.
And that is my job. I don't, and you know what it's done is it's created, now by default, I've become a better delegator.
Yeah,
I've become better at, creating vision. I've become better at, acquiring AAA talent and bringing on the right team. And now I'm in the position where, like, now I'm ready to raise money.
Yeah.
And and he gave me these three kind of like principles to follow. And, it kind of just like helped lead me the right path, helped me get away from the imposter syndrome and realize that the value that I bring is an intangible value, because I'm an individual and my personality doesn't exist yet.
Yes.
And when I bring what I'm bringing to this world, it's going to be its own thing. And I don't have to compare. I just need to have confidence in
Yeah.
myself and believe in myself. And I've been trying really hard to look in and focus on the self-worth and
Yeah.
building of your self-confidence. And that's
Right.
really what helps push everything else away.
No, that's awesome. I think we need more of those individuals to kind of have a narrow mind, focus on specific things I'm good at and what your role is, and kind of ignore the noise that's going around. Because I
Exactly.
feel like too many people in our generation get kind of, oh, they got XYZ role. Why is their title this? Or, they raise so much money and stuff like that. And then you lose focus on what you're actually supposed to be doing and attacking your goals, right? So great advice there. So yeah, man, Tiago, that kind of wraps things up for the bulk of the podcast. One thing we always love doing at the end of the podcast is like a little lightning round to get to know you a little better. So basically, it's
Cool.
4 to 5 questions, and you have like a couple seconds to answer each one. Cool.
Let's do it.
All right, awesome. So obviously, you come from the car industry, so I have to ask, what is your favorite car?
McLaren Senna.
Nice, nice.
Gotta be.
What is the favorite book or your favorite movie of all time?
The Purple Cow. That was I'm not a big reader, but that book was unbelievable.
Who's that by?
Seth Godin, I believe.
Oh, okay, that marketing guy.
It's a book about marketing, but I'm telling you, like it helped me in business overall. Just brilliant book.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. If you could travel somewhere, obviously pre-COVID or after COVID, where would that be?
I just got Bali in my head. I don't know. Like I just feel like that's a spot I got to go check out. So it's just on my mind, and I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go to Bali at some point soon.
Nice. Yeah. And last but not least, a controversial question we always ask here: do you like pineapples on your pizza? Yes or no?
Pineapples belong on pizza, and honestly, everyone's entitled to their own wrong opinion. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's tasty. It's good. I mean,
meant to be. I'm personally a no-go on that pineapple on pizza part, but I always enjoy them if I go to Copacabana and they caramelize with the cinnamon and stuff.
That's a beautiful thing.
They're so good, right? So, but yeah, man, I really, really appreciate this. This was really fun. I learned a bit more about the car industry too, and what you guys are up to, and I'm rooting for you guys to kind of continue on this rocket ship, and we'll stay in touch for sure. And I want to see how things go. So, where can individuals find you, and how can individuals get to connect?
Well, I mean, me personally on LinkedIn, you can search my name, Tiago Teixeira. That's usually where some people reach out to me. Or on Instagram, we're XIX3D, simple on Instagram. My personal Instagram is Second Sun, similar spelling of second skin, but it actually spells no snakes backwards. So that's my personal Instagram. But yeah, if anyone wants to reach out, Instagram, LinkedIn, wherever, I'm always willing to chat.